welcome back to another episode of Coach Larry's podcast. Coming back from vacation, so it's been a little while. We'll talk about the Italy trip, but with me is special guest, athletic trainer extraordinaire, Joe Lojewski. Did I screw it up, Joe Lojewski?
No, you nailed it.
All right. It's funny, and affectionately known in Niagara Wheatfield as Trainer Joe. It's funny, before we came on here, I actually had to look up your last name. I'm like, I just know him as Trainer Joe.
Yeah, no, it's just either Trainer Joe or Joe around the school. It's just nice and personal, I guess.
I'm telling you, and it's been awesome. I've been at Wheatfield. I just finished up my second year coaching girls soccer. Didn't do track and field this year, which I think got Coach Smith. Megan was a little mad about that. But before I got here, every coach that I talked to, like I know Rob Udy, I know Megan, every coach was like, wait till you meet the trainer, wait till you meet the trainer, wait till you meet the trainer. Trainer Joe's awesome. And they weren't wrong. I mean, it's been 2 years of it's always great when you have a trainer, not only who knows his stuff, like you obviously do, but just that the kids get along with, the coach itself gets along with. It's so easy to just, hey, Joe, what do you think about this injury? How was this injury? This person got hurt in practice. This person got hurt in a game. What do you think timetable are? And you're always so quick with an answer. It's been awesome. It's been awesome working with you, and hopefully for years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a pleasure, getting to get close with the sports teams. And when you came in a couple years ago, you allowed me to really be a member of the team. So I always appreciate that on my end too.
We're going to talk a little bit about that later because Joe, honestly, there's been times where you've basically been like almost like an assistant coach, especially during practices. You were awesome. The first, not this past year, but last year when I came in, and I knew the girls just from coaching against them and playing against them. I didn't know, all of them. And you were right on there with me on the sideline that first day of tryouts 2 years ago, where you're like, all right, yeah, this is a good person to be your keeper. She's probably going to be your starting defenseman. She's probably going to be a forward. She can also play midfield. I mean, you were, for me personally, it was awesome just coming in with somebody who not only had was a great athletic trainer, but just had knowledge of the girls. And you were like, well, this person's going to have, it's her personality here. It's her. And you were just right on it with every little advice. So again, thank you for that, because it was really very helpful, and it made for me a smooth transition.
Yeah, of course. It's always interesting because coaches and players will always get close to each other and get to know each other well, but sometimes there is like that little gap, especially when it's a new coach coming in or maybe new girls coming up to a varsity team. I always like to try to be that bridge, because a lot of girls can safely come to me, or any kids at the school can come to me and say anything. And they're kids that I've known for years, and I get to see how they are as athletes and really get to, like you coming in, I get to tell you all that stuff. And then on your end, you're able to trust me with a bunch of information. I can help try to, be a second voice in the ear. Because sometimes, a lot of the kids, especially at the school, are really good about, they're very coachable. But, any teenage kids at times can be like, okay, coach, whatever, and sometimes like having like a second person in their ear that's like a unofficial coach helps out a lot too. So that's why I try to kind of bridge the gap a little bit.
No, and you did a great job, especially helping me out that first year, and even the second year. I mean, it was just tremendous. Now, how did you get into athletic training? Like, what made you want to pursue that in college?
It's funny. I feel like a lot of people I talk to, they'll get injured a lot in their athletic careers, and they deal with, athletic training and physical therapy and stuff a lot during their time. They get the firsthand experience. They're like, oh, this is kind of cool. I want to do that. I was the athlete that was the opposite of what I tell my athletes to do. Stubborn, I'd go roll my ankle, tie my shoes tighter, get back out there. I never went to see help or anything. But it was funny. So my senior year of high school, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, one of my good friends was like, hey, like there's this, athletic training class you want to go take. And I knew nothing about it. And I was like, what is it? And he's just like, oh, like it's just, you deal with sports and injuries and a little bit of anatomy and stuff. And I'm like, sure, whatever. We'll just hang out in the class and have a good time. I had no idea what it was. Started
Typical
taking it.
senior class.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's just like, yeah, well, just, whatever. So I ended up taking it and it was really my first intro into anatomy. And we started breaking down specific injuries and treatments for them and a little bit of like taping and everything. I was like, well, this is kind of cool. And then I really like started to realize like this is something you can do for a career. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So, when I was visiting around at colleges and looking around what I wanted to do, I found a couple that offered the program, and I ended up just enrolling in it and seeing what it was like freshman year. And obviously, I went through all 4 years with it, and I'm still here.
That's awesome. And it's funny that you say like you're the type of athlete that athletic trainer and coaches hate because they'll hide injuries or they'll and I was the same way. And I mean, you've heard me harp on the sideline, but like, listen, you need to tell me if you're hurt. You need to tell me how bad your knee is or how bad your shoulder is or whatever. But I'd be the same player on the field. I'd be like, I'm fine. I'm playing. Are you okay? Did you break? No, no, no. I'm good. I'm good. Just put me back in. I'm good. And especially I was notorious and thank goodness stuff has changed a little bit. But I was one of those players where I'd get hit in the head and finish a game. Or I remember one soccer game. I'm a short guy. I'm gonna say 5'6", but I'm probably shorter, closer to 5'5". But I remember one game where I literally was going up for a ball and a bigger kid just raised his foot and I literally ran into the bottom of his foot and I knew like I was seeing stars and it was kind of got up, shook it off. The coach, here's what our concussion protocol was back in the
You
mid
good?
90s, mid to late 90s. You okay? Yeah, I'm fine. All right, go get a drink of water, run down to the corner flag, run back, get back in the game. You good? Yeah, coach. Thank goodness it's not now, but I was definitely one of those players where I would hide injuries and now it's you look at it like you said, you hate those players on the sidelines. You're like you respect them, you get why they're doing it
Yeah,
and you tell them like
yeah,
listen, I understand you want to be out there, but you going out there right now is not doing any good because you're not 100% and you're sometimes I find myself literally giving the speech that I should have been giving to myself as a high school kid.
yeah. And definitely part of me being an athletic trainer, understanding that since I was the same way. Um, the good thing is now being at the school for I finished up my 6th year there now, and a lot of the kids know me and they can trust me with everything, and just having that trust component, like I know like my first like year or so at the school, when no one really knew who I was, like wouldn't be a whole lot of people coming to me telling me about stuff because they every athletic trainer is a little bit different. Some will you tell them that your toe hurts and they're going to sit you out a whole game. So I always try to find that balance where, you're going to get bumps and bruises. You're going to get banged up a bit. You're playing a high level sport. It's going to happen. So they trust me knowing that, like, if it's something minor we can work through, they feel comfortable telling me stuff and I can allow them to play through to an extent if it's not, no risk of it making it worse. So knowing I was that way in the past definitely helps me now for sure.
And that's funny because you do have coaches out there that'll tell their kids, not tell their kids, but they'll be like, oh man, you went to the trainer. You realize now you're out a minimum of 2 weeks or a minimum of 5 weeks, or you got to get x-rays on your wrist or ankle or whatever to prove. So it is important that the athletic trainer has that relationship not only with the student, but with the coach. And I learned really quickly with you, like if I've got an athlete, that hurt their knee and they want to play through it, that I can go after you've checked them out. I'll go over to you. Hey, Joe, what do you think? Is she going to hurt it more? Is he going to, do any more damage to it? And I know you're going to give me not the answer that I want to hear. You're going to give me the honest answer. You're either going to tell me, yeah, Larry, she's fine. Let her rest it for 5-10 minutes, or no, Larry, she's done. Like we're going to wrap her up with ice and sorry, I get it. It's a sectional game or it's a league game or whatever. She's done. And I'm also, I trust you enough where I know, all right, Joe's not going to tell me this because he's being difficult or whatever. He's telling me this because this is the right call to make. So if I'm on the fence with any call, I know that, I can defer to an athletic trainer who I trust.
Yeah, it makes a big difference when you have a good relationship with the coaches. Because I'm not gonna. I'm not the type to hold every single person out with every single thing. So when it does come time where I'm like, this is, it's kind of significant. I don't think they should play. As soon as I tell that to you or any of the other coaches, they're usually like, oh, okay, yeah, understood.
Yeah. And that's how it should be. Now you said this was you'll be going into your 7th season.
Yep. Seventh
Um,
year at the school.
did you start anywhere else besides Niagara Wheatfield when you first came out of college?
So this is my first full-time career job. So I went to Mercyhurst for my undergrad, and that's where I got my bachelor's of science in athletic training. I went to West Virginia Wesleyan for a year. That's where I did my master's. When I was there, I did like a grad assistant work. It was basically like kind of part time. I was with one of the local high schools working football with them. That was technically like my first job, like after being certified as an athletic trainer. But like being full time at a school, Wheatfield was the first place. Yeah.
Now, is athletic training like teaching where you have to get your master's, or is it just like kind of you don't have to get it, but it makes you more marketable?
So when I was in school, it was just like it was just a bachelor's degree and master's preferred is how it was. When I was in the process of finishing up college and graduating, the accrediting program for athletic training was just changing curriculums, and now, as of probably I want to say maybe like 5, 6 years ago. Now it's an entry level master's program. So it's you. There is no more bachelor's of athletic training. It's you're going to college for. Some schools offer like a pre athletic training. Some schools will be like an exercise science, something in that realm, and then you'll end up going do that for like 2 or 3 years, and then you'll get accepted into their like master's program for athletic training.
Oh, that's cool. Now, when you first got into the program, were you always under the mindset of I'll go to a high school and do high school athletic training? Were you in the mindset I wanted to do college, I wanted to do pros? I mean, you're still a young guy. That's definitely still on the table. Not that we want you to leave Niagara Wheatfield anytime soon. But what was your, I guess, career path that you initially thought when you were starting the programs?
I was always open to whatever at first, but I really wanted to do high school for a long time, and that's still where I am now, and I love it. So well, at least when I was an undergrad at Mercyhurst, starting your sophomore year, you started like a clinical rotation every semester. The first rotation that we had was at one of the local high schools, and I just really enjoyed it. I like the fact that you get to see so many different sports, you get to interact with so many athletes. I really like the age group of working with teenagers, just because like how I kind of said earlier, kind of like bridge the gap. Another thing that I kind of like really like, probably the thing I enjoy the most is just really being that person that the kids can go to feel comfortable around. Sometimes there's, you get close to teachers, you get close to coaches, but sometimes there's only like stuff you might not tell the teachers and everything. Kind of being the younger guy and being like not necessarily like a exact head coach or a teacher or anything. The kids just feel comfortable to come to me about whatever, and I really enjoy that aspect of the job. So I've always kind of wanted to do high school. I did a lot of rotations when I was at college, doing like work with college. It's enjoyable, but usually, I mean, every school is different. If you're at like a D3 school, like you're probably similar to high school, you're covering like almost every sport. D2, maybe you're covering here and there. D1, you're maybe with just one sport, and then you're traveling all over the country. I remember one time when I was in college, I was with the football team, and we're in Erie, and we had to travel to, I think it was like East Stroudsburg, some random place in the middle of Pennsylvania, which is a huge state. So I remember we traveled, it was like a 7-hour bus ride to get there. We had to stay the entire weekend, and it took up the entire weekend just to play 3 hours of football. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good on that. So I like the high school setting where it's just at the high school. If I travel, it's very minimal.
It's funny that you bring that up, because that's one of the reasons why. I mean, I coached soccer for years, 25 plus years. I mean, Jesus, I'm getting old, as you can see with the gray beard here. But I've also done indoor track, outdoor track for years, outdoor longer than indoor. That was one of the years, and I know Coach Smith, Megan Smith, who's been on my old show, Stories from the Sidelines, she was not happy that I decided not to do outdoor or indoor or outdoor track this year. Just because indoor, it was literally every meet we would have to drive an hour and a half or 2 hours just to get to Houghton College, which is a great facility. And then we're there all day, and then we're driving an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on the weather, could get up to 2.5 hours all the way back. And it's a lot of fun. You get a lot of soccer kids, a lot of kids from different sports. You build that relationship, but man, those bus rides are cold, long, and it was just after doing indoor for 7 years, 8 years. And I was always a 3-sport guy. I would do soccer, go right into, before I did indoor track and field, I did bowling for a number of years, which was a lot of fun. Definitely a little easier, although you usually had to work every Saturday. But I would do soccer, bowling, and then outdoor track. So I was coaching 10 months out of the year. And it had gotten to a point where last year I kind of told Megan, and we had our touchy, moment, our touching moment, emotional moment, but like, I don't want to do it anymore. But she understood, and it was just, but yeah, the travel, I don't think people realize, and I'm sure you for athletic training too, I don't think people realize, for coaches, for athletic trainers, for athletes, sometimes just the travel alone is a lot. And I'm sure it's even twice as bad in college, where you're constantly traveling.
Yeah, it takes a toll on you. Like I said, it was like such a real eye opener when I lost an entire weekend just for like basically 3 hours worth. And especially when it was football, like there's just so much prep that goes into it beforehand. The game, it's an afternoon game, it starts at 3 p.m., but you're starting working on all the guys at like 10 a.m. and it's just like, oh geez.
Now, what is a typical day for you at Wheatfield? Whether it's a game day, whether it's just coming in where no teams have a game, like what's a typical schedule in the life of a high school athletic trainer?
So basically, it's kind of like a second shift. I don't. Some people don't like that. Me personally, like I like sleeping in. I'm not gonna lie, so I enjoy it. I don't get to the school till like 1:30, because school doesn't end until about like 2:15. So in my office doing a little bit of work for an hour, catching up on paperwork, documentation, that kind of stuff, getting ready for the day. As soon as the school ends, basically I have office hours where if the kids need anything, if they need to be evaluated for an injury, they need to do a follow up, PT, get taped, they can come in right after school ends, and I have like just isolated time to work with them there. Usually about like 3:30. Practices are already kind of underway. Usually they start a little bit after school ends. So I kind of like make my rounds, go around to the teams, following up people who I need to follow up with. Most of the times I'm just kind of like, shooting crap with the coaches and just kind of hanging out as much as I can. Because if I can, that's good. Everyone's healthy. So I'm just kind of going around checking up on people and just kind of really, that's where you try to like be a part of the teams. If there's, certain athletic trainers where their kids never see them and they're like, oh, I don't really know who the guy is. So that's when you're really trying to like, make the relationships to build the trust and everything, which is the important thing. And then usually games will start around like 5 o'clock or so. So 4:30, just kind of getting prepped for all those. Um, when it comes time for games, at Wheatfield especially, it's interesting. Sometimes there's just one soccer game or one football game that I'm just at, and I'm just kind of there, being on the sidelines for both the home and away teams. If anyone needs anything, I'm there. Other times, especially being at a ginormous school, like in the springtime, I'll have a day where I have 3 lacrosse games going on at the same time. I have JV varsity baseball, JV varsity softball, a track and field meet. It's just like
Wow.
my head's spinning. So those chaotic days happen from time to time. And when that happens, I'm either stationed at one event depending on the intensity of the sport, or I'm just kind of like bouncing back and forth between everything. And I'm just telling the coaches like, heads up, like I got a lot going on. Call me if you need me.
Have you ever had like a day where, like a chaotic day, like you said, where you've got 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 games going on at a time? But have you ever had a day where it was just like every bad thing that could have happened at one of those games happened all like at the same time? Have you ever had like a Jesus Christ, I just want to go home?
Let me breathe. Yeah, no, for sure. I remember there was one day, it might have been like my first year. I think it was in the fall time. I think there was like, I think both like boys and girls soccer was going on. So there was like a varsity game, JV games. There's four games right there happening. And then there was, I think like maybe volleyball going on inside at the same time. And it seemed like it was really my first like eye-opening day to it because it seemed like I'd be like at varsity soccer and then I'd get called like, hey, we got an injury at JV soccer. I'd go over to JV, and as soon as I get there, I get varsity calling who I just left like, hey, we need you here, and it's just like nonstop. Um, so there are days where it doesn't happen all that often, but there are days that happen once or twice a year where it's like I need to be in multiple places at one time, and it's just one of those things of thankfully the coaches like you guys all understand like how chaotic it is, and you know that I'm always like trying to be responsive, like when I can be. So if I'm not, it's not because I'm just like, oh, Joe just, he doesn't show up at times. Like it's like, oh, if he can't come, he's busy.
Yeah. Joe's on break. Joe's driving the cart around somewhere. No, it's funny. Like even anytime, usually I'd say 9 out of 10 times, 90% or more of the times when we have a home game, you're like right there on the sideline. But there's been a few times where I've had to call you, whether you've gone to the JV game or something else, where I've had to call you, but like, hey, Joe, we've got a girl that went down, whether it's on our team or the other team. I mean, you're very quick to respond. You're very quick to like, all right, Larry, I'm just wrapping up here. I'll be there in 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is. And just that response, like that's sometimes you don't get that from trainers. Sometimes you get like, yeah, I know, I'll be there in a minute. Or yeah, I'll get to you when I get to you. They get really grouchy with you. You've just been so like, all right, and it's not only that, you won't even say like, I'll be there in a minute. You explain like, all right, I'm dealing with so-and-so over this at this game. It's going to take me a couple minutes. I'll be there. Great. Okay. And that's where, as a coach, I'm like, all right, he's dealing with that. He gave me a timeline. It's going to be 5 to 10 minutes. If it's my player, I can go let them know or, kind of help out a little bit. If it's the other coach, I can walk over and say, hey, coach, I called the trainer. Joe's going to be here in about 5 minutes. He's just working up with another team. And even just going over, and I've had coaches tell me that, listen, that's awesome. Thank you for letting me know that, because sometimes as an opposing coach, you're not necessarily sure. You're like, all right, did he call the trainer? Did that coach do this? Is that coach just trying to hang me out to dry? Like, what is he? So it's great to just hear that feedback from other coaches that you're so quick to respond. Now we talked a little bit. You talked about playing sports in high school. What sports did you play in high school?
My main sports I played were basketball and soccer.
Okay,
I did. So one thing not a lot of people know is when I was like, so probably starting when I was like 5 years old, all the way like through high school, I actually did martial arts. I
really?
did like, so I did a lot of years of Taekwondo and a lot of years of combat Hapkido. So those are like my two little like fun facts, I guess, about me.
Do you
But
still keep up with it from time to time?
no, that it was such a cool experience doing that for many years. You know, especially like getting black belts and like different forms of martial arts. But I was so over it. I was ready to be done.
I feel
Um,
like that's one of those things where the higher you progress, the higher you get to a certain point, you're like, all right, I could continue, but this is just too much.
Yeah, at so it took I think every martial arts school is like a little bit different, but the way my school did, like the head like teacher that we had, she was very strict about like you if you want a black belt, you have to earn it. Like you can't just come in here, do martial arts for a year and you're getting a black belt. It's because it's supposed to be like the most prestigious thing. So I think I started when I was like 5 years old, and I think in Taekwondo when I got my black belt, I think I got it when I was maybe like 12, 13. So it took me like a good long while, 7, 8 years to get one. And
Wow.
so, and then after that, like you can keep going. So like when you get one, it's like your first degree black belt. If you want to get your second degree, it's at least like 2 years on top of that. You got to keep going, and it's just like, no, I'm good. I've had enough.
Yeah, but even just getting the black belt itself, I mean, that's an achievement. I know my stepfather did martial arts for years. He was able to get a black belt, and then once he got it, it's kind of the same thing. Like, all right, I got it, I accomplished it. Let's let it drift and let's do something else.
Yeah, and that's the point where I just like, yeah, I'm gonna focus on like actually like playing team sports because like I can't do this anymore.
Now, do you kind of your sports that you played in high school? Can you kind of help relate that to athletes that you in those sports that you if you're dealing with an injury from them? Does that kind of help you relate to the athlete? Like, yeah, I remember when I was playing, I rolled my ankle, or I had knee issues, or I had whatever, just to kind of help them deal with going through what they're going through.
For sure. So, being an athletic trainer, you can just study the movements all you want. You can know in each sport like what injuries are going to be more common than others. But when you have played that sport, you know that firsthand. It's like a little extra experience you have. Area where it really helps is mostly on like the mental side of it and just the psychology part, because being a former athlete, like, you know, kids don't want to hear that they have to sit out, right? And so like you have to know that like
Yep.
you have to know firsthand what it's like being told, even though I just said ironically I didn't I never said anything when I was younger, but knowing what it's like to be a competitive athlete and having that mindset that you're ready to go, you have to know how to talk to them about, like, hey, like this is why we can't play. We have to look forward to like the rest of the season and these important games coming up, and just kind of like know how to like work your way around talking to an athlete when they're upset that you're telling them that like, listen, we can't play today. It's just not safe for you too. Because they're like, no, no, I'm fine. And it's like, no, I'm trying to save you from yourself.
Exactly. And in the background, I don't know if you heard, that's Bella. She's trying to get on the podcast, my golden doodle, who is 12 years old and still acts like she's a puppy. I mean, we're
Cool
hoping
energy.
she's going to, oh my God, we're hoping she's going to slow down one day, but it doesn't look like it now. So she was barking a little bit there in the background. Um, but yeah, I agree 100%. It's so important to have that player mentality as a coach where I mean, there's been a lot of times that I'll tell some of my athletes, especially in soccer, but like, hey, listen, I came off of a broken ankle before. I came off of a separated shoulder. I know how it feels to, if you keep letting these nagging shin injuries or shin splints in particular, the longer, where if you deal with them right off the bat and maybe missing a week or two, a week's worth of games or a week worth of practice, and you can clear it up as opposed to letting it go and linger and linger and linger. And next thing you know, you're out for sectionals. Next thing you know, you're out for the NFL championship game. And you're out for a month or even longer. And it can really just prolong. So telling them, sometimes I think just as an athlete, sometimes hearing it from somebody who's went through it, especially if they went through it in the sport that you're playing, I think it goes a long way. And I know for me as an athlete, I could always tell, especially in soccer, I could always tell if I had a coach who used to play the game or if I had a coach who was, well, this is a parent or this is a teacher, because we couldn't find anybody else, and they know
Right.
very little about the sport. So it's definitely a dynamic where, like you said before, it's all about building trust of the athlete, whether it's from a coaching level, an athletic trainer level. And I feel like too, sometimes you got to build the trust of the parents. If you're dealing with parents on the sidelines or parents in the stands and they see that you know what you're talking about, I think that goes a long way from constantly hearing them chirp, chirp, chirp. Hey, coach, you should do. Hey, coach, you should do this. Hey, coach, you should do that. So I think the sooner you can really show, hey, I know what I'm doing, it kind of gets everybody else to just kind of back off and let you do your thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely something over the years as I've, been practicing for a few years now. It definitely becomes apparent. Once you're starting out first, when the kids don't know you, the coaches don't know you, the parents don't know you, it's just kind of like it might be a little bit of like a your word versus mine type of deal. But, as you kind of go through more and more experiences and you start to build that trust with them, it makes the conversation much easier when I'm talking to an athlete who knows me, a parent who knows me, a coach that knows me, that like when I'm saying that like we can't be pushing through this, and it's like, oh, okay, it must be legitimate then.
Yeah, and it's like you said, kind of bringing it back to coming into a new school district or a new just program in general. I know for me, I started off my coaching career at the Park School of Buffalo. I was there for about 5 or 6 years. Then I went to Kenmore, and between Kenmore West and Kenmore East, I think I was there almost a little over 15 years, I believe, 15, 16 years. And I was settled in there nice and was nice and comfy, knew the parents, knew the athletes, knew every year. I mean, it was kind of like, all right, this is what we got to do. This is what we got to get everything started. Coming into Wheatfield, I'm not going to lie, I was anxious as all heck. There were a couple of reasons. I was anxious just because coming into a new district, coming in, like you said, getting to know the parents, getting to know the athletes, not knowing the athletic director, the athletic trainer, some of the other coaches that you're got to deal with, but also the fact that, I mean, I obviously from playing against the Wheatfield team, I knew Wheatfield. I knew they were a very strong team. I knew they had a lot of gifted, talented girls soccer players, and they were always up towards the top of the league. In fact, I think the year before I got there, they finished sectional runner-up that year. So I remember that first year. I don't know if it showed, but that first year, I was so stressed out on the sidelines. I'm like, if we don't win an NFL championship, if we don't make it to the sectionals, finals, if we don't, like every year, I'm like, once we cross it off, I'm like, all right, cool, won the NFL championship. They can't say we did any worse. In fact, the year before, I believe they lost the NFL title to Tonawanda. So I was like, all right, accomplished that. I was like, at least I'm at that level. Then when we got to the first playoff game, sectional game, I'm like, all right, we won that. We got to the sectional final. In fact, the semifinal game, in fact, we'll get into that one against Lockport, the one where we went into overtime and won it in overtime. That was one of the biggest moments for me. That was just so much fun watching Caitlin score that overtime winning goal. I know you were on the sideline right there. That after we won that, I'm like, okay, at least I got us back to what we did, what they did last year. They can't blame the coach for I'm not the fall guy. And then obviously we were able to beat Clarence in a shootout and go on to the Far West Regionals. We won't talk about that Far West Regional game. That was just
That doesn't count.
That doesn't count. And I tell everybody, I'll have some of my friends that I'll tell afterwards, and they'll be like, that's such an excuse. That's such an excuse. You're making excuses. But we were literally running on fumes when we got to that game. I mean, Marissa was banged up. Caitlin was banged up. Casey couldn't play. She had hurt was it her knee or her ankle?
Knee.
She had hurt her knee in the Clarence game and wasn't even able to finish that game. Ava was banged up in net. She was, hip injury. We were running on fumes going into that game, and we ran into a buzzsaw of a team. I mean, was it Spencerport? I think it was Spencerport that we played. I mean, looking at their stats, they had given up 2 goals all season long. I mean, they were running roughshod through everybody. They were a dominant team. I think somebody was telling.
Yeah, like 7 or 8 of their starting 11 were committed to D1 as it was. I was like, oh god, okay.
Yeah, and they had 12. They had 12 committed college players total. So even one of their bench players was a committed college player. So it was just, kudos to them. It would have been a tough game. It would have been a tough task even if we came in fully healthy. But we were patching everything together, and it didn't go well for us that game, obviously. But just to get to that point, to beat Clarence, for me, it was just such a relief. It was like, okay, everything after that is just gravy. And in fact,
you
go ahead.
You bringing up the overtime winner against Lockport in the semifinals. This is probably still to this day, my favorite Coach Larry moment. For many years, anytime you have a game winner, and whether it be an overtime goal in soccer, hockey, game winner basketball, whatever it is, it's not uncommon at all for the team to run off the bench, off the sidelines, onto the field. And I've seen that many times, but not once have I seen the coach go flying onto the field, outrunning all the players. And it was so funny just seeing you. I've never seen you run so fast. And then your fedora goes flying off as you're running, and it it was a very enjoyable moment, and that stuck out to me the most. It was very funny, but it was awesome.
I've had coaches come up to me, whether they were friends come up to me, whether they were in the stands or whether they saw it on the streaming service because it was streamed, whether it was through Huddle or one of the services, when they saw the game afterwards or saw the game live. In fact, the Clarence coach, Mike Silverstein, who we ended up playing in the finals that year, he texted me after the game. He's like, "You running on the field was hilarious." But I always tell people, good or bad, I'm gonna coach like I played. When I played the game, whatever, soccer was my big sport. I mean, I ran track and field, but soccer was my main one. When I played, I was one of those athletes who was always gonna give you 100%, always gonna live or die by the game, always gonna go out there, give it my all. Wasn't a poor sport. I mean, I played in Niagara Falls. We got beat many times in soccer. But even in upper level travel teams that I played with, if you win, great. I'm going to celebrate. If you lose, I'm going to go over and shake the team's hand, like, great job. You beat us, whatever. We'll get you next time, this and that. And I did it for the NFL championship game when we beat Newport. You get some opposing coaches where it rubs them the wrong way. I don't care. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to celebrate with my team because I know not only how hard I worked as a coach for the season to get to where we got, but I know how well and how hard they worked as players to get to where they are. And damn it, if you don't want me to celebrate with my team, then beat us, because every single game I'm going to celebrate with my team. And I know I've gotten some backlash throughout the years. Some coaches love it. Some coaches think that's great. And I know you get some coaches that show no emotion. That's not me. I'm
Well,
going to
that's
show emotion.
exactly. You're an emotional guy, and it shows, and that's a compliment, right? Like, it's when you have a coach that is emotional, is not afraid to show his levels at the highest of highs and also at the lowest lows. It makes it so much more relatable for an athlete. So you doing stuff like that, like, I think it helps. It shows who you are as not only a coach but a person, and it's very good to be around from, like, a team perspective.
I mean, and I'm not one of those people too. I'm not going to rub it into the other coach and give him like, haha, whatever. I'm after the game. Any coach that I've played against, whether I won or lost, I go over. I give him a handshake. If I know the coach, I might give him a hug if I've known them a while. And when you coach, especially once you usually coach like 5-10 years in the league or longer, you pretty much know every single coach in the league. So it was one of those where you just go over after the game, you give the coach a hug, you go through the line, whatever. In fact, at Clarence, when we beat them, Mike Silverstein, Chris Durr, they were, first ones. They'd come up to me, shake my hand, hey, go, represent our section, go give them hell and regionals. Class act. And I think you find that with a lot of the coaches, where even if you lose, that's what you just say to them. I know when we lost Lockport this year, that was one of the first things, Coach Pelicano from Lockport, who did a tremendous job with his team. After we lost to them, that was one of the first things during the line. I went through like, hey, go give Lockport hell, go kick their butt. It was, that's all you can really say. And again, that was a game that unfortunately didn't go our way. And there were some things that it probably should have went our way. I addressed this on one of the episodes where, I mean, you were there. We went from thinking with 8 minutes left that we were up 3-1 or up 2 goals, 4-2, I think it was, to all of a sudden being tied 3-3 or 4-4, whatever it was. I'm
That's
not going
still
to get
one of
into
the
that.
most. Yeah, definitely don't want to get into that, but yeah, one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen. That's for
It
sure.
was strange. It was weird. And it was one of those things where the frustration for me and anybody who's there, and I'm sure you could attest to it, I was extremely frustrated on the sideline. And I know Frank Strangio, who was my assistant this year, he was extremely frustrated, confused, because it was one of those, for whatever, it was a year where that wasn't the first time it happened. Something like that happened to us. Wasn't the second time, wasn't the third time. It was just I mean, unfortunately, sometimes that's in sports. Some years, some games, you get the calls. Some games you don't. And it was just a combination of that. And again, taking nothing away from Lockport. They had a strong team. They did a great job. They kudos to everything they got. They unfortunately in the finals fell to Clarence. I forgot what the score was, but Clarence was able to go to that to take them out the next week. But it was, we look forward in a couple weeks, a couple months. We're going to be having some, I'm sure, back and forth battles with Lockport when we face them at least 2 times this coming season. But I want to talk a little bit more about that first year run. And we talked a little bit about it in the beginning of the episode, but Joe, you were basically like an assistant coach at times. I mean, whether it was all your help that you gave during tryouts, there were times where you would come in and you would, like you said, on the sidelines, if it was an off day, you'd come to a practice, you'd stay there pretty much the whole time. You'd help out with scrimmages, you'd help out with drills, or if at that point I didn't have an assistant coach, I was doing everything myself. So you were, it was great to see you as, like I said, I can kind of go there. Hey, Joe, do you mind grabbing me some cones? Hey, Joe, do you mind? You were very willing. In fact, I remember after the first couple practices, you were the first one to come up. Hey, Larry, if you need any help, let me know. So that was great. Talk a little bit about, from your perspective, just how fun that season was.
Oh, it was a blast. It was so many of those girls on that team. They've been on the varsity. They were, seniors, juniors. They've been playing varsity since freshman year. So, that team has been kind of together as a big group for a while. So like the chemistry was there. A lot of really good players on that team. A lot of just fun to watch. Some of them you just like, oh my god, why is she so good at soccer? That's ridiculous. And so there was already like a really good vibe with the team. And it was very interesting, like having you come in, because like I tell you, talking to a lot of the girls before you were even like officially hired, just knowing that there's going to be a new coach, a lot of the girls were like very like nervous. They're like, I don't know how this is going to be. Like, we have such a good roster, like we need a good coach to be able to take us to the next level. So it was a lot of questions, and I think after meeting you, kind of like the kind of person and coach that you were, as soon as the girls kind of saw that, I think we all kind of collectively knew that it was like possible to like do anything, win any game that we faced, pretty much being the case. And it was just, can't lie, winning's fun, right? It's a good time.
The day it stops being fun is the day I stop coaching.
That's right. So, winning games obviously fun, and just having it's just such a good group dynamic between myself being there, you and the girls. Like, just everyone kind of gelled together, and it was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the, in fact, the only losses we had that year. We lost an early one to NT. Then we lost a late one, and it was funny because when I got hired, it was kind of late into the season. Usually as a coach, especially for fall coaches, typically around like March, April, May, you've got your league schedule. It comes out, and for us, we can do up to 5 non-league games, because we usually have 11. That's including the crossover or NFL championship game. And then you can do like your non-league games. I kind of got hired late into the process, where by the time I officially got the job, I was kind of scrambling. I'm like, okay, let me, can you play me? Can you play me? You want to play me? Can we play? I ended up contacting a lot of schools, and they just simply, it was, sorry, we can't, we're already filled. We're already booked up. One of the games that I had a couple parents and players question me about was that Williamsville South game at the end of the year. It was, I think it was 2 or 3 days before, in our case, it would have been the NFL championship. And as we kept getting closer and closer to that game, we had a couple parents, do we have to play that game? Or a couple kids, what are we going to do about that game? Why did we do it? And I obviously you go into that game and we lost. I think we lost 3-2 or 2-1. It was a close game, and they were a very good. They're a very good program. In fact, that year they went to the sectional finals for Class Single A, and they lost to Newport in that game in the finals. They were a very solid team, but it was one of those games where I'm glad we played it, and you're never happy that you lose, but I'm almost glad that we lost that game, because I think for the girls, it really got them refocused. It really got them ready for, at that point, we had already locked up our spot in the NFL championship game. So we knew we were playing Newport, I think 2 or 3 days after the game, but we knew we were playing Newport. We knew we were pretty much going to be ranked either 1 or 2 going into the playoffs, going into the sectionals, which, because we beat Newport, we ended up getting that top seeding over Clarence. But it was almost like that Will South game. Not to say the girls were getting too big, not to say that they were getting, that we ran over a few teams, but we weren't running over everybody by any means. But I feel like as a team, they rallied around that loss. It refocused everybody, and we were able to we beat Newport in a very close game in the NFL championship game. We beat Lockport in the semis in a very close game. We beat Clarence, obviously, in a shootout in a very close game. So I really think, in hindsight, I thought it was a great game, and just so much fun during that year.
Yeah, what you said, how you kind of glad that you lost it. It's sometimes when you're too good of a team and not all the opponents that you're playing are just like up to your standards, you kind of almost like go into some games like sleepwalking, right? Like you just kind of get in this rhythm and just kind of casual. When you don't face any adversity as a team, you don't know how to handle it. And so, sometimes, I've seen that before with, many different, different sports with teams where they might have a regular season where it's just like a breeze. Maybe like the league is just a little bit unbalanced. Then as soon as you get to playoff time, where like every game matters, you're not really used to that speed or that dealing with adversity, and then people just start to crumble. Having a game like that, especially, that's kind of a really key point in the season to have one. It's I'm sure it did benefit you guys.
Oh yeah, and it definitely made us battle tested, and like I said, we needed that. Especially, we knew we were going to be playing against Newport. I believe their spot was already set, just like ours was. By that point in the season, we met them early on in the year, and I think we beat them. It was either 2-1, 3-2. Was a very, very close back and forth game. We knew it was going to be another back and forth battle. In fact, I believe it was, again, I think it was a 2-1 game. It was one of those games where we were holding a 1-goal lead towards the end. And I'm sure on the sideline with you there, I'm probably sure I, dropped a couple of words that I probably shouldn't have said as I'm walking by. I'd be like, "Oh, Joe, this is too close." But it was so much fun. And I think that's starting with that game and then into the sectionals. As a coach, as a player, in my opinion, those are the games that I love. Sure, it's good every now and then to go out and beat a team 10-0 or whatever, just where the game after halftime or even before halftime, the game isn't in question. But for me as a coach, I love those games that you're tied 1-1 or it's 0-0 at half, or you're up a goal and you're trying to defend. For me, those are the most memorable games. Instantly that come to mind. Like I said, the Lockport game that we won, one of my top 5 all time. The Lockport game last year that we lost, still a very memorable game that I'm not going to get over anytime soon. The Clarence games, for me as a player and as a coach, I love playing in those games. That's what sports is all about.
Yeah, victory's a lot better when it's hard earned.
Yeah. And I mean, if we, even in that Lockport semifinal game, if we had gone out and if we had won, the clock ticked down and we're up by 3 or up by 4 and it's whatever, we're just counting down the minutes, probably wouldn't have ran out on the field. I mean,
Right.
It
Yeah.
wouldn't have been. Now, I've said this before to a couple people. I've mentioned this to um, Frank Strangio and a couple of the parents, a couple of the players. I want to get your opinion on this. In my opinion, the Lockport overtime win that year was, in my opinion, I took more pleasure out of that win than out of getting the Clarence win the week after, even though Clarence, that win was for, the sectional championship, Section 6 title. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, you were there on the sideline for both games. You were, like I said, at that point, basically the assistant coach. Um, how do you rank both of those wins?
Um, Obviously the Clarence win being like the sectional winner, like that's just like amazing. But I don't. I see it. It's very realistic to rank the Lockport one ahead. Just being kind of part of that team. Lockport's basically like our rival, right? Like we face them 2 times a season. Every single game is super close. There's always drama that's going on, and I think as soon as that year when we went into the playoffs and we had the bracket set, um, like you can't ever count out any games, right? You still have to look one game at a time. But like realistically looking, we're the number one seed going in there. I don't even remember if we had like a bye or whatnot, but
We had a
first
bye, yep.
we had a bye, and even like the first game that we played, it was like, okay, like we got to play who's ahead of us, but we know we from day one we had Lockport circled, right? Like we know that was like the game that we had to come out and show out. A lot of the girls on the team, to put it nicely, just did not care for the school, and they wanted to beat them. To have that game circled on the calendar for so long, and for it to be a game under the lights, neutral site, going to overtime, it was like a movie, right? Like it's just like it had the highs were highs, the lows were lows. I remember at half, I think it was halftime. There was one of the girls on the team. She was like bawling her eyes out. She said she wasn't playing good. I was over there on the fence, like trying to like calm her down and get her head straight. Like it was a very emotional game. So I think it's me personally. I don't know if I can choose between the two, but I don't think you're crazy at all if you think that one's like the more memorable one.
It was such a great game, and like you said, you had players that would come off the pitch, whether they were getting a sub for 2 or 3 minutes or going back on, and it was, Coach, I can't get my shot off. Coach, I can't do this. Like, relax. This is a fun game. And even at when we got into overtime, some of the girls were just anxious. Well, what if we do? Like, girls, just take a breath, soak in the moment. Look around you. This is what you play the game for. You're going to go out there. You've got the next uh, first overtime and second overtime to decide this game. Just continue to play your game. Um, in fact, I remember at some point, and I've watched the game back a couple times. I believe there was probably, I want to say, like 20 minutes left in the game where Lockport ended up getting a break, and they took the lead. I think it was tied 1-1. They took the lead. They went up 2-1. And I specifically remember on the audio, you could hear Lockport. They're cheering, whatever. Game goes back in play very shortly after, and their fans started to chant like 1, 2, 3. We want 4. We want 4. And literally, I don't know, maybe 10 seconds after we want 4, we put one in the back of the net to tie it up 3-3. From that point on, it goes to overtime. And it's just, as a coach, I didn't hear the chant, but as I'm watching the game back, watching footage of it and watching back, every time I get to that point, I'm like, yeah, you want 4. There's like it was so cool. And not only that, the way that it was won in overtime, I thought we dominated a large portion of the overtime. I thought it was just the girls' experience that came into play. They really took over the game. But I remember in overtime, there was a point where Lockport went on like a partial break, and I'm like, my eyes got built wide. I'm like, oh my God. And Ava just made an incredible save. Girls were able to rebound. We got the ball out, and it was very shortly after that. And the second, it was one of those things where I just remember watching it as it happened on the sideline. The second that ball got on Caitlin's foot, I'm like, it's in the back of the net. Like she took a touch or two, got it down and shot it, scored before she even took a touch or two. I'm like, this is a goal. Like and you can kind of see me on the sideline. I'm already like kind of celebrating, like before she even shot it, just knowing the type of player she is, knowing the type of person she is, knowing the type of shot she has. She was just outside the 18. It's why I'm like, there's no way she misses this shot. And sure enough, just right in the back of the net. And I mean, the rest was history.
Yeah, when you're in those situations, obviously it's a team effort all the way through, but you look towards your stars and your stud players to like really be the ones to go and elevate you. And I think I mean, I never said it myself, but I had the same feeling. Like as soon as the ball got on Caitlin's foot, like we knew she was shooting that ball, and especially like not only is she shooting that ball, but like that where she was on the field, like that's her shot. And so
Yeah.
like it was like tensions are high at every little pass, every little shot, every dribble. But at that point, it was like almost like a relief. You're like, oh my god, like our stud player has the ball right where she wants it. We're good, and
Yeah.
it's
It
sure
was like,
enough.
if we can't win now, we're not going to win. Like, I mean, it was
Yeah.
just like you couldn't ask for a better opportunity. And just like she did almost all year long, she buried the opportunity in the back of the net. And it's one of those players, too. Like, Caitlin was a very talented offensive player. She was one more where she would get the assist. I mean, she scored a lot of goals. I think that year she scored 15, 20, somewhere around there. So she was high up on our score leader, but she was more, her points came more of passing to Marissa or passing to Sydney. Sydney and Marissa were more of our predominant goal scorers that year, and even last year. But just to see Caitlin just get that shot, rip it in the back of the net, and to see her celebration, to see the girls celebrating. And it was funny because when I sprinted on the field, I looked afterwards, like I sprinted to where I thought the girls were going to be, and they kind of started going towards, and I'm like, doing like a wide run there to finally to get somebody. And it was just so awesome. I mean, it was just, like I said, in my mind, it was better than the championship game. And I just remember going into the game too. I'm like, we beat them the first game. I think the first game we beat them fairly easily. We beat them by three goals, maybe. The second game, it was very tight. We had to hang on and beat them. I think we beat them by one. And it's one of those games as a coach. And I talked about this with John Coulter, the coach of the boys. I'm like, John, I was like, it's tough to beat a team three times in one season. It's tough. It's tough. And he just, another great person from Wheatfield who from day one, as the boys varsity coach, just, hey, what do you need? How can I help you make the transition? Was an awesome guy. In fact, I'm trying to get him on as one of my guests, which I think would be he'd have a lot of fun stories to share. But just he was on the sideline with us too for that game, and he was like, "You got this." He's like, "Just beating a team three times in one season, it's nothing. Just take them down. You're fine." And in fact, and this was a rule I didn't know. During that Clarence game, we're in overtime, and there's maybe 5 minutes left in the second overtime. And John, who was on the sideline with me, he comes over. He's like, get your kids ready for the shootout just in case. He's like, but you still get a split title if it goes into a shootout. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, just, make sure play smart defensively, because if it goes to a shootout, you're at least co-champions. I was like, are you serious? He's like, yeah. He's like, so and I didn't tell the girls this, and they didn't know that either, but I didn't tell the girls this until the shootout was over. Once we got to that shootout, I'm like, all right, at least we're co-champions. But I'm like, at the same time, I'm like, damn it, I still want to win. I still want one more game.
Yeah.
But it was just so fun. And even that shootout. Now, what are your thoughts on shootouts? As a player, I think they're cool to be a part of. I've been a part of where I've been the shooter. I've been a part of just watching it. As a coach, I think it is the worst way to end a game. Just at that point, and the Clarence game was so much fun because it was such a back and forth. Ava would make a huge save. Their goaltender would make a huge save. Our defense would step up big. Their defense would step up big. We had the lead early. They came back. They tied it. They took the lead. We came back and tied it. It was such, do another 15-minute round of overtime. Or just no time limit. Just keep playing until somebody scores. Like, what's your thought on shootouts?
I'm kind of with you. When you are like a coach or you're with the team, shootouts are terrible. Like you said, that game was great. It would have been amazing just to kind of keep seeing more of the game played. And it kind of sucks if you're on the loot. Like obviously, at least Clarence in that specific situation, they can still say that they're co-champs, right? But if you lose in it, even if it wasn't for sectional championship, if you lose a shootout, you're like, the heck, like we could have easily won that if it just came down to like one bad PK that one of the girls took or blah 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 blah. So yeah, being on the team, it's not ideal, but from like a neutral standpoint, it's a blast. So
Oh yeah. As a fan, sitting back and watching it, like, all right, this is cool. But in my opinion, especially when you're getting that far and the stakes are that high, I get it. You don't want the games to go on all that long, but man, just I would have loved another session of overtime or another whatever. It was just such a great game.
I remember when overtime ended and we're heading to shootouts. I was with Casey on the sideline. She was done the rest of the game, and I looked at her and I was like, "Has Ava really practiced any like penalty saves this year?" I got nervous because I was just like, because it was her first year playing goalie, which it was mind blowing with how good she was. I had no idea if she even practiced PKs, and I got so nervous. Yeah, she started off like amazing, and I was like, okay, I think we're good, but still, it's so nerve wracking.
In fact, I'm going to give Casey Casey and Marissa a little shout out because going into that Clarence game, I was so focused on, especially at practice. I think we had two practices before the game. I was so focused on, all right, girls, we're doing this formation. Watch out for this player. Watch out for this. Watch out for that. At the end of the last practice before the game, Casey and Marissa came up to me like, Coach, do you think Ava should take a few shootouts? And I'm like, yeah, that's fantastic. We had her do shootouts, I think, for the last half hour. We had the girls take shots on her, but it was just one of those things. But like, I was thinking about everything else. I'm like, damn it, why didn't I think of that? But like, yes, go on the line now, shoot. So I give those two all the credit in the world. And Ava I couldn't believe that it was her first time playing goal. And I know that was the beginning part of the year. We kind of bounced back and forth between her and Lauren Soto, who did a great job in net. But when it came down to it, it was just Ava just gave that a little bit more. And she's one of those players where she's going to do whatever it takes. I mean, if she had to go through a wall to make a save, she was going to. It was so incredible to see her make that transition that quickly.
Yeah, I remember in the summertime before that season, a bunch of the girls were out in the field, like practicing, just doing like little captain's practice type deal. And Ava was in net, and I was wondering, I was like, "You playing goalie?" She's like, "Yeah, we kind of need one because our previous one just graduated." And like you said, Ava kind of had that same mentality of like, "I'm gonna do whatever it takes," and she's just a freak athlete herself. So it just athletes, no matter you put them in any position, they'll pick up on stuff like that. And so she did, she did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, in fact, that's what made this past season. And I had told a couple people, and going into the season, I was like, all right, I mean, I'm returning 10 out of 11 starters. I was like, this is going to be phenomenal. I was like, why can't we do the same thing? In fact, get a little better. I know the team we faced in the Far West Regionals, they were losing a number of their players. Let's go out. Let's get back there for a rematch. Not that as a coach, you're looking forward to anything, but then I got the text from Michael Parker over the summer, Caitlin's dad, who is the head of the boosters. Him and his wife, Allison, they did a great job. And it was those three letters that you never want to hear from your as a coach from your athlete, or just never want to hear in sports in general. Tore her ACL in just a freak basketball accident. I guess was playing summer basketball, just went up for a rebound, kind of came down wrong, bumped somebody's knee. And it was one of those things, well, she's going to get checked out. It might not, it might in the back of your mind. I mean, you're praying as a coach, and even you've seen those out there. You're like, okay, maybe, but in the back of your mind, like, yeah, it's torn.
Yeah.
And for me, it went very quickly from being, all right, let's run this back, let's get to it, to, oh no, I just lost my starting goaltender. Not only that, I lost one of, in my opinion, if she had played this full season or even last full season, because she split, I think Lauren got about 7 or 8 games, so she kind of split the season. I was like one of the goaltenders who would be in the mark for first team Western New York. Just it was so emotional, and it couldn't have happened to an. I mean, she was just such a nice kid, like just such a great athlete. Everything a coach wants from an athlete, Ava had. She was coachable. She had a great attitude. She knew how to get her teammates into games. She gave you everything out on the field. Even when she went down with that ACL injury before the season started, a lot of times you see kids, once they get hurt, all right, they'll show up for maybe 1 or 2 practices. They'll slowly kind of fade out. Not Ava. She was there for every single practice. The only time she missed was she ended up getting her surgery a little late. She got her surgery, I want to say, end of September, beginning of October. So she obviously, after the surgery, she obviously missed, a week or 2 worth of practices. But she was, the second she could get back to practice, she was right back there with her knee brace on. In fact, I think you and I joked, but like, Joe, she's going in for surgery. Would she do any harm if she played in some of these games before she went into surgery? But all joking aside, she was such an important part of this team moving forward this season, even though she didn't play a second on the field.
Yeah, just an unbelievable kid. It says a lot when I've been at the school for 6 years, and I've, had thousands of kids that I've seen now. Like, she's like up there as like one of my all-time favorites. Like, she's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever had, like, what's the toughest injury you've had to deal with? A, I guess as a player back when you played, and B, with like as an athletic trainer. Like, what's one of those where you were on the sideline and you saw it and you're like, oh no, like what's one of the worst stories you had to deal with?
Me as a player, like, I honestly like never really dealt with too much. I would just roll my ankle a million times throughout a year because I would never let anything heal. I think now both my ankles are just all scar tissue. Like, I'll just be walking and my ankle will just go like that, and I'm just like, oh, okay, and I just keep walking. So I personally haven't had to deal with like too much, hamstring strain here and there, but nothing crazy. I've had a good few that have been like pretty bad. A couple of them I don't want to really like talk about in depth because they're like a little personal. But I've had to do some spine boarding a couple times. We've seen that, like, you watch NFL games. It seems unfortunately happen too many times. I think every time I've done it, thankfully the kid's been okay. I think I've done it maybe like 3 total times now. But it's mostly just all that caution. Kid gets hit in the head, they're on the ground, you go out there and stabilize the head and neck, and you start asking them a bunch of questions. At that point, your concussions, probably a thing, but you're more worried about their cervical spine. You want to make sure there's no fractures, nothing neurological that's being affected. You start asking them questions, and they're like, yeah, I got this sharp pain right in the back of my neck, or they might say they have some numbness and tingling going down their arms. Right away, you're kind of like waving the red flag. You're like, this is not good. So those are, a couple times you got to stabilize, and you gotta, they're leaving in the ambulance. Like, you're not messing around with those. So I had to do that to a couple football players. Had to do that. Had to do that in hockey. Had to do that on ice before. So those are usually pretty bad. I remember one other time I was covering. It wasn't for the school. I was working like a hockey tournament. It was like a USA Hockey Championship States or something. and I had a kid get slashed right like the thigh, and it was like a really deep cut. We had to like, thankfully, a couple like coaches and parents even ran over to help. Someone took off their belt to kind of put like a tourniquet on, and we were just kind of compressing and waiting for EMS to get there. Some things you don't really like think about or see often, but you got to be ready for those emergency situations.
Yeah, and I mean that's got to be tough on obviously on the players, but even just I know I've throughout the year seen tough injuries, um whether it's been my players or other players, but as an athletic trainer, that's got to take a toll too on you mentally, especially if you have a strong relationship with the kid. Like you said, some of these kids you've been their trainer since they were seventh grade. You've seen them progress from modified sports to JV sports to varsity sports. Does that ever kind of weigh on you mentally a little bit, dealing with some of these big injuries?
Um, After the fact, I think I've been very good over the years. Whenever there is something serious, I'm good about just like locking in and just like I know in the back of my head that like when it's serious, like they're gonna need to go get care that's beyond just the athletic trainer. But the athletic trainer is the first responder. Like everything that you do is like the most important step because you're the first one there. So knowing if like you're suspected of like like going back to the spine boarding thing, if like you're suspected that they might have like a cervical fracture, you're worried about like their spinal cord. You're the first responder. You have to be cool, calm, and collected. If I'm there and I'm doubting what I'm doing, if I don't trust my own judgments, he or she might not receive the best care. If I'm there freaking out about it and making it like the athletes are usually going to be freaked out if you're telling them that they're going to go ride an ambulance. But if you're freaking out yourself, they're like, "Oh my god, this guy's freaking out. This is terrible." Blah blah, blah. And they're going to get all worked up and everything. So um, it's the athletic trainer's job to like really just keep them calm, steady. So you have to be calm and steady yourself, and just even though I'm still overall young in my career, I've only been out of college for 7 years or so. Um, yeah, I just have to trust what I do, right? So that's just what it comes down to.
And all right, Joe, before we get into our hot seat questions, I got to say in fact, I want to see if you remember this. Before our semifinal game against Lockport, you came up to me, you were like, "Do you mind if I talk to the seniors?" And it was a pitch. You went in. I think it was you, Marissa, Casey, Caitlin, Sydney. You guys kind of huddled up, and I stayed back, and I grabbed my phone real quick, and I snapped a picture of it and sent it to you. That I think just was the coolest moment of last season. Just seeing, obviously, you had a strong relationship with those players. Just seeing them, you realized the gravity of the situation. Whether we won or lost, it was they were closing on the end of their careers for high school. A number of them moving on to bigger and better things for college, obviously. But to me, that was just such a cool moment, and I was glad I was able to snap a picture of it and send it to you. Talk a little bit about, and I don't want to hear what you said to him because obviously that was private. You guys shared your moment. Talk a little bit about what that moment meant to you, because in my eyes, that was just such a cool moment.
Yeah, it was just kind of like a spur of the moment thing. I wanted to ask you first because, like, you make me feel very welcoming. And, like, you even said earlier, like, how I'm kind of like an assistant coach. However, at the end of the day, I don't want to overstep boundaries, right? Like, me, I'm not going to go over and just be like, okay, blah, 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 start like coaching because, like, that's your job. You're way better at that than I am. But that was just something I kind of thought of, spur of the moment because, like, especially those four girls, like, I've grown very, very close to. They've been playing varsity for 4 years. Like, I know them well. I know how they are mentally going before big games. And so I was like, listen, like, I feel like I just need to talk to them and just kind of have a moment and try to calm them down, because I knew they were all nervous. I want to try to get them to kind of lock in and just like, like you said, kind of enjoy the moment. So, as I said earlier on, like my favorite thing of my job is just kind of being more than an athletic trainer, right? Like I want to be that person that the kids at the school feel comfortable around. And so when I get an opportunity to do that with some of the kids that I'm close with, I'm gonna try to just take advantage of it and be that person that can, you know, be able to talk to them in time of when they're all freaked out, and the time when they need talking to.
No, absolutely. And like I said, it was just such a cool moment. And even I know as a coach and as a player, sometimes just having another person there to talk to you. Like sometimes if you hear, I know as a player, I've heard the same thing from a coach over and over and over and over and over again. But then when you have somebody coming out and saying kind of the same thing, you're like, oh yeah, that's good advice. In fact, I'm gonna put my wife on blast a little bit. There's been times, whether it's something through work or whether I'm like, Vic, why don't you try the Vic? Why don't you try this? Why don't you try this? And then the next thing, a couple weeks later, a couple days later, she'll be like, yeah, I was talking to so and so at work, and they told me to try this, and I thought it was a great idea, so I tried it. And I'll kind of look at you, but like, are you kidding me? I've been telling you the last like 2 years, like, what are you doing here? But sometimes just hearing it from an outside voice is really helpful. And I think that was your um biggest part though of that year, where you were on the same page and you would just kind of reiterate the same thing, and they would sometimes just needed to hear it from another point of view, another outside voice. All right, Joe, we're going to go into our hot seat questions. We'll just bounce back and forth. We'll do 6 questions. Like I'll start. We'll do 1, 2, 1, 2, you, me, you, me. The first question I'm going to go to, and I know your nickname right now is Trainer Joe, so we're not going to use that one. I'm not going to let you use that one. But in high school or in college, did you have any nicknames that you were given in high school or in college? Mine, I had a few in high school, but one that stood out for me was I had a phys ed teacher, elementary, middle, and I actually had him in high school too. He gave me the nickname Moose Monahan. He called it to me for a little bit. I don't know why. He called me Larry Zonka at the beginning of the year. I ran cross country 7th and 8th grade before I switched over to high school soccer. But he would always call me Larry Zonka. Then it kind of transferred to Moose Monahan, and it just always stuck out. And it ended up my younger brother, Joey, he ran, by the time I had transitioned over into soccer, he was a number of years older than me. In fact, when I was a junior, he came out for the soccer team for the first day of tryouts, and I just looked like, you know what, Joe, this probably isn't for you. Why don't you go run cross country? And he ran cross country, and he did way better at cross country than I did. Like by the time he was a senior or a junior, he was, sectionals. I think he ran in states once. Great cross country runner. And it was funny that the Moose nickname ended up transferring to him, where by the time he was Moose Monahan. And I would joke around with people, and I'd give him grief. I'd be like, I was the original Moose Monahan. I'd be like,
I'm
no,
the
you weren't. No,
OG.
you. But so for me, Moose Monahan, that would kind of stuck, just for the fact too that it got transitioned to my younger brother. But what high school nicknames or college nicknames did you have?
So in high school, we had 3 Joes in our class. All 3 of us like never got called Joe. The other ones were always by their last names. One was Swanson, one was Bozich. Me, no one's just gonna go say, "Hey, Lojewski," because that's just such a long, that Polish last name. My dad, he always had the nickname Lojo. It was kind of like a shortened of like my last name, and so when people like asked and people kind of like got word of that, and they just started calling me Lojo. Just I guess it's better than like, instead of putting like Joe Low and or be called like J Lo or something, like I'm
J
Jennifer
Lo.
Lopez. So it ended up just somehow becoming Lojo, and it's funny because to this day, like all my closest friends from high school will still call me Lojo. Like my best friend from high school, like I was the best man in his wedding a couple years ago. He still calls me Lojo. His now wife that I met that didn't go to high school with, she calls me Lojo. It's to the point where my close friends, like, they'll just be like, "Who the hell's Joe?" They like don't even like know that as a name anymore. It's just kind of like a nickname that happened, and kind of it still has kind of stuck.
It's funny how some nicknames stick. In fact, there was 2 that I gave as a coach that stuck. One kid, and I coached him modified boys soccer at Kenmore Middle. He first day of practice, I don't know why he just kind of, his name was Nate. He just kind of came out. He's like, you can call me Grandma Bagels. What the hell? So the rest of the season, I called him Grandma Bagels. Everybody called him Grandma Bagels or GB. I think it just ended up getting shortened to GB. And we were about a little more than halfway through the season, and he scored a goal. And it was one of those goals where sometimes you see a goal and you're not quite sure who scored it. You know, it was kind of in a bunch or whatever. And I knew it went in the back of the net, and I looked. I'm like, who got it? Who scored? Just so I can put it for stats. And one of the kids was like, Nate. Nate scored. I'm like, Nate? Who the heck is Nate? And they're like, GB. I'm like, oh yeah, that's his name. And the other name I gave, and this one I actually gave. We had I had transitioned over to Kenmore East for their girls modified team, and that year we had 3 Marias on the team, and couldn't call them all Maria. So one of the girls' her last name was Costanza. I'm a huge Seinfeld fan, so Costanzo. So I called her. I called her George. I just started calling her George, like George. And I remember, I was like, "Are you cool with that?" She's like, "Yeah, it's fine." And it was one of those things where I coached her 2 years at modified. I ended up coached her through JV, and I coached her through varsity. So I had her all the way up. By the time she was done, all her teachers at school were calling her George. All her friends were calling her George. On her varsity jacket, she put George. And I just remember looking, I was like, does that annoy you? She's like, no, I love it. She's like, some teachers, if I don't like the teacher, I'll tell them, don't call me George. She's like, but I'm fine with it. So that I thought was the coolest nickname I ever gave. It was awesome. And there were times too, like I'd yell on the field, George. And the other coaches would look at me like, we're playing girls soccer. Why are you yelling George? Like, don't worry about it. So I thought that was great. All right. Question 2. What do you got for us, Joe?
Maybe a question you've experienced on here, because I feel like around these parts, this is a very common question.
Okay.
Are you a drum or a flats guy?
Good question. I'm a flats guy. I just like it. I think it's better tasting meat. It's easier to get a hold of. The drums, sometimes you just get in, you got to chew a little bit. You got to this. I'll take flats all day.
Yeah, I'm definitely a flat guy. At the end of the day, a wing's a wing, right? I'm gonna tear it up no matter what. But if you told me, I could have 10 of only one of them, I'm going flats all the way. It's just like
100%.
Something about it just tastes better, right? I feel like it's just so
100%.
satisfying if you need like push the little meat through too. It's
Absolutely. You can that's why you don't. In fact, it annoys me when people leave like that little middle wing. Like, dude, what are you doing? Like, get that. You're like wasting the whole wing.
That's a sin.
I'm telling you, I'll love a flat. Not only that, if you don't want to push through, just snap the little wing off and just eat it like that. Kind of building off this question, and I won't chicken out with an easy question, but blue cheese or no blue cheese?
Blue cheese, yeah. So I'm not from here. I'm from Pennsylvania. So like the blue cheese culture was definitely like a new thing to me. But so I've always had like growing up like, oh, here's like bottled like grocery store blue cheese. I'm like, okay, whatever. But then having it like go to a nice like restaurant and like having like homemade blue cheese, it's to die for. I'll occasionally get people to come visit, like family and stuff, and like they are like I'll go take them out and like, you need to try these wings, and like they'll be like, oh, can I get ranch with that? And I'm like looking at the waitress, I'm like, listen, I'm sorry, like they don't know better, like I
They're not locals.
yeah, don't crucify us.
It was funny, like for me, for blue cheese as a kid, I loved blue cheese, but when I was eating wings, I would only like dip the celery or dip the carrots in the blue cheese. I wasn't a big wing on blue cheese guys. Typically, I think like college or even after college, that's when I kind of started dipping the wings in it, which is just awesome. But I won't wimp out and make that my question 3. Or it's my second question 3 total. We'll transition a little bit to NFL. You said it, you're from Pittsburgh, so you're a Steelers guy. Aaron Rodgers, be honest, Joe, do you like the pickup? Do you like Aaron Rodgers going to the Steelers? Yes or no?
I kind of find him a little annoying at times, just constantly just seeing him go on like the Pat McAfee show and just talking about whatever the hell he's talking
The
about is just
darkness retreats.
yeah, it's very bizarre. He's a weird dude. However, so from a sport perspective, um, the Steelers have not had good quarterback play in like God no 7 years now, something like that. Like I was tired of watching Kenny Pickett, tired of watching Mason Rudolph. Big Ben his last couple years, like he was like a shell of his former self. Rodgers is nowhere near his prime self. He's definitely a lot older and everything, but like he's a lot better than anything the Steelers have had the last couple years, and he's the best option available for them now. Like the other option right now would be like starting Mason Rudolph, and like I'm sorry, he's not good. I've seen him play, he's not good. He's not starting quarterback caliber. So he's the best option they have. He's the best one to give. He's a good bridge quarterback. If we need him for a year or two, just so we finally draft a good quarterback, hopefully, he's gonna be decent enough. And as weird as he is, as annoying as he might be, there really hasn't been much that come out over the years about him being like a bad teammate. It seems like coaches and like teammates in the locker rooms love him. So I don't really think people say he's probably going to be a locker room cancer. I don't necessarily know that. I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. But I'm okay with it. That's what I'll I'll say. I'm not ecstatic about it, but I'm not upset about it.
Okay. I mean, you're more optimistic than I am. I mean, obviously, I'm a Bills fan. I think it's gonna be a train wreck. I think, in fact, I'm gonna go out on a limb. I think this might be the first year in Tomlin's tenure that they have a losing record and they don't make the playoffs. I think he's done. Not only the fact it's just, and we saw it last year, and he didn't have a horrible season last year. He had a decent season. But he's going into 42. He's a year and a half, 2 years removed from an Achilles tendon tear. It was pretty obvious last year that he couldn't step into his throws. A lot of time I think it's the age. I think it's the injuries. I think it's just a number of things. I don't think it's going to last. I almost wonder if the Steelers by week 9, week 10, week 11 are going to have a new starting quarterback. But that's just me.
Yeah, see, I think I'm obviously going to be a little more optimistic, but at the same time, I'm realistic. My optimistic is they're going to go slightly above 500 and get smacked in the first round of playoffs like they have the past couple years. So I think it's going to be the same. But if what you said it actually does happen, I wouldn't be shocked. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and I mean for you guys, it might not be bad going 4 or 5 wins. That way, they're saying that this quarterback class coming out could potentially be 2 or 3 or 4 quarterbacks deep. So, if the Steelers do bottom out for a year, might not be a bad time. Get the Steelers version of Josh Allen in that draft.
That'd be nice.
All right, Joe, what do you got for question 4?
Let's stick with football while we're at it. So as I've come to like the Bills a lot. They're easily my second team now, being in Buffalo. As a Bills fan yourself, what do the Bills need to do differently to actually finally get that Super Bowl? Because we can sit here and point fingers at the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes all we want. And, like, listen, they're a dynasty. Mahomes is great. But, like, at some point, something has to change. So what in your eyes do you see that needs to be the biggest thing that this season or the next couple seasons needs to be different to where they're actually going to be above Kansas City and be able to beat them?
That's a good question. It's I mean, obviously Kansas City has been the Achilles heel. There's no debating that. I know Cincinnati knocked us out the 1 year, the whole DeMar Hamlin debacle and tragedy, but that team was running out of gas no matter what. I've gotten some heat from this before, even from some friends when I'll say it in conversations that we've had. I honestly think that within if this year or maybe 2 more years, if we're still getting the same results, Allen's having an MVP-like season, the Bills' offense is firing on all cylinders, the defense is playing good or above average, or there's been times where they've been top 5 going into the playoffs or top 10, and we're still, for whatever reason, not getting over the hump. We're still losing in the divisional or in the AFC championship game. Please, I can't take another Super Bowl loss. If we make the Super Bowl, we better friggin' win. I think it's to the point where it would have to come down to coaching. There would have to be a coaching change. I think McDermott is a great coach. I think he was absolutely the right guy to break that miserable playoff drought that they had. I think he brought the winning attitude. He brought culture. And I really hope he is the guy that can get us over that hump and win us a Super Bowl. Because I really think he's done great things. But at the same point, Josh Allen is getting older. He's 28, 29, just turned 29. He's getting older. Are you gonna roll another year, another 2 years, another 3 years, another 5 years with McDermott as that head coach and still getting the same results, winning the division round, losing the AFC championship, winning the wild card, losing the divisional? So I think it's getting to that point where within the next year, 2 years, maybe 3, if we're still getting the same results, whatever the case, even if it comes down to coaching decision or not, I think it would have to be a coaching change because you're not going to get rid of Allen. I don't care if he's 33, 34, 35. As long as he's being productive and doing what Josh Allen does, you're not getting rid of him. You've revamped the defense, obviously, this year. You've revamped the offense. Now, if this year, and again, knock on wood, if Allen gets hurt or if the defense has injury after injury after injury and we have another season, maybe it's just that we need to stay healthy. But if we stay healthy and it just doesn't happen, McDermott's, in my opinion, would have to go.
Yeah, I have the same answer. I think McDermott's a good coach, right? And I think it's kind of ironic talking about this because, like, right now it's kind of like the same thing with the Steelers.
I was going
Mike
to say
Tomlin.
probably very similar.
Yeah, and it's McDermott's a great coach, and I think he's been a proven floor raiser, but he's still right now a big question mark is if he can raise the ceiling. And I know it's kind of like sometimes it always feels like the cop out answer, like, oh, just fire the coach, blame the coach, blah blah blah. But sometimes it just takes a fresh start. I always look at Andy Reid in Philadelphia. Great coach, great team. Andy Reid needed a new scene. Philadelphia needed a new scene, right? Worked out great for both of them. It comes down to it, like you said. You don't want to make it like a last second emotional decision and sack them after one bad year. But if you keep getting the same results over and over and over again, like you get to a point where you have to do something, right? Because
You have to at least try.
You have to try, and if you aren't trying anything new at that point, you're just striving for mediocrity because you're not willing to take a gamble and change things up. So I 100% agree.
Yeah. No, I think it's and again, taking nothing away from him. And there's been great coaches who have been held. Bill Belichick has been fired, who I think is overrated. Andy Reid was fired, who I think is a way better coach than Bill Belichick. So if McDermott does get fired, it doesn't mean that he's a bad coach. Sometimes good coaches, sometimes great coaches get fired. It's just the nature of the beast. Like I said, I really hope. I like what they've done in the draft this year. I like what they've done with their defense and their offense. I think this can be their year, although I've said that the last 5. I really think this can be their year, and this should be their year, and let's hope that it is their year. And whatever, we can knock the Steelers off in the AFC Championship game. That way we can both kind of be happy. How's that?
Hey, if we make it to the AFC Championship game, by all means, I'm cheering.
All right. Last question for me, and then one more for you. We'll do non-sports. What's outside of sports or outside of athletic training? What's one hobby of Trainer Joe?
And outside of sports, I do a lot of sports. Yeah, I love to just sit and watch sports. Like I'll just throw a basketball game on, throw a soccer game, anything like that. But one thing I do, I sometimes get into a little bit of gaming here and there.
Okay.
It's a good way to keep up. I got a lot of friends like in different states, and you can kind of just go on and play games with them and chat, and basically just kind of hang out. So that's just kind of a good way to kind of turn my brain off. So that's probably like the main one that doesn't involve like playing or watching sports.
Okay, very cool. For me, I love cooking. Like I love cooking. I like to do a lot of pasta dishes, but I'll do ribs. I'll make my own sauce. I like trying different dishes. In fact, my daughter's home from college. Well, actually, just graduated college, but she's leaving for grad school in a couple months. And it's been, can you cook this? Can you cook this? Can you cook this? Which I love. And I tried. I don't know where this came from, but the other last Thursday, Friday, she asked, she's like, "Can you make jambalaya?" I'm like, "Ooh, that's an interesting one." So I looked up a couple recipes, and it came out okay. The taste was there, but it was one of those things where it started off really thin, like it was almost like too much of a soup. I'm like, all right, this is too thin. Like so I put in a little more flour, put in a little more roux or whatever they call it, this and that. And then it just got way too thick. And I'm like, how do you, like, by the end, she was like, all right, this tastes good. But it almost kind of, after a while, like it tastes like cement. Like I'm like, yeah, I'll get better at it next time. But for me, I love cooking, and that's kind of a way that I can turn my brain off from sports or turn my brain off from teaching. So if I'm stressed, I'll go and I'll cook.
So what I'm
And
hearing is you got to bring me some leftovers sometime this upcoming season.
hey, listen, this year we'll do a little rib cook off.
Ooh, yeah.
We'll do you right. In fact, we got to get Frank Strangio in on that. Frank, I mean, he owns a couple hotels, some restaurants. We'll do a nice team meal.
Yeah, there we go. I like to hear that.
All right, Joe. Last question before we get out of here.
Trying to think of something that wasn't sport related, but that's where my mind bounces back to every time. As a big soccer guy yourself, do you follow and pay attention to a lot of like the bigger leagues, like whether it be like Premier League or any of the other major leagues, or do you pay attention when it comes to them for like national stuff like World Cups and stuff? How much do you kind of follow and get into that stuff, if at all?
I definitely love the national team. I follow Team Italy. I follow the Italians, obviously. But so I love watching the Euro Cup. I love watching the World Cup. Um, as far as like the Premier League or Serie A, the higher level leagues like that, um, I'll watch them from time to time. I'll be aware of them, but I don't typically follow them. Lately, over the last year or two, I've been actually following Wrexham a lot. They just got promoted. They're in the second league now in the Premier or in the English league, English football. But I've been following them. I don't know. I think their story is really unique, with the two owners where I think they started off in League 6 or League 5, whatever, and then they've moved up. They've had now back to back to back promotions. I think part of it is too that I love rooting for underdogs, and love seeing the little guy kind of climb. So um, lately they've been a team that I've been kind of following. So I've been really interested in them. How about you?
It's funny you say Wrexham because I remember a few years ago when I heard that those guys bought that team. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like whatever. Then at the end of the year, you hear, oh, they got promoted, and then next year, oh, they got promoted. They got promoted. I'm like, oh my god, like they're actually doing crazy stuff there. Soccer is one of the outside of like football and basketball, like one of the main sports I like follow and watch. I don't really pay too much attention to like the Premier League and stuff. If I have a club team, it's Barcelona. I've just
Okay.
always been a fan. I was a massive Messi fan when I was a kid, so I just kind of attached myself to that team. But I love every year that there's like a big like national competition, World Cup, Euros, Copa America, whatever it is. I just love watching those. I remember like a couple years ago, like the last World Cup we have. I remember just kind of like just every game, I'm just like glued to the TV, just watching it. I remember like freaking out when Argentina went to penalties, and I was just like wanted Messi to win his World Cup so badly, and I'm just like freaking out. Um, so no, I definitely do a bit, but once it comes time, like next year when the World Cup's going, I'm gonna be all about it. It's like my favorite. My favorite summers are always World Cup summers.
There's no other tournament, hockey, football, whatever. There's no other tournament like the World Cup. It is just, it totally, it is what it is. It's the world. I mean, it totally brings the world together for that amount of time. It is awesome. Um, I know it's coming. They're splitting games between Canada, Mexico, and the United States next year. I'm hoping to get tickets to one of those. I don't even care. I would love it to be an Italian game or a U.S. game. I don't even care what game it is. Just to say you went to a World Cup soccer game. I don't even care what teams are playing would be awesome. But yeah, it's in my opinion, it's the best tournament in all of sports. I don't even care if you're a soccer fan or not. It is the best tournament ever. All right, Joe, we got to wrap things up here. I feel like this is a long episode, and I feel like we've just scratched the surface. Like I feel like I could go on for like another 2 or 3 hours. So we definitely have to have you back. Open invite anytime you want to come back on. Just you know how to reach me. In fact, we'll be seeing a lot of each other soon because that soccer season is coming right around the corner.
Coming fast.
Coming fast. So thank you, Trainer Joe, for coming on today. Make sure you guys check us out at Coach Larry11 on X, on Instagram, and check out all our future episodes and old episodes at Coach Larry's podcast. Thank you guys, and we'll make sure to tune in next week for another exciting episode. And go Bills.
Go Bills.